keep ruining your franchises, Disney. Keep doing it. I'm loving it. I'm loving watching it happen. I'm like way past the point of being upset, and now I just want to see you fail again and again. Release that Rey movie. Oh, I dare you. I dare you. You know, put out a Grogu and Mandalorian movie. Stuff old Mark Hamill in there with a reskinned face and try and recapture that Mandalorian season 2 glory. Do it. Just keep doing it. Spend so much money on all of these things. I just want you to lose hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars again and again and again.
If you're a Star Wars fan, you might have noticed that Disney and Kathleen Kennedy have made it their mission to basically destroy the brand. And now they're officially trying to remove Star Wars from George Lucas and everything that's ever stood for since he created Star Wars. And here to talk to me about that is the man that will be enjoying The Acolyte with me. We will be reviewing the first 4 episodes of The Acolyte, Aaron Sparrow.
Yeah, the first 4 episodes, man. Thanks for that, Lane.
He really is a bad person, but hey, we'll put it out there and we'll check it out and give it an honest review. You know what? If The Acolyte is good, and I do not anticipate it being good, I will be the first person to eat crow and be like, hey, I was completely wrong. The Acolyte absolutely is amazeballs. But based on everything that I've heard leading up to this moment and what we're going to talk about here in a moment, I just don't see that happening, Aaron.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine that it's going to be good. You know, looking at the people that are in charge. I mean, you know, when I was on Verbal Riot last Monday, they had me watch the trailer live. I hadn't seen it yet. And it didn't move me at all. Like, I will give it points. It looks like they've spent money on the visuals, but there was nothing about it that excited me. Or I think I'm just so dead to Star Wars now, just as a brand, that like there's no nostalgia in it for me. There's nothing that gets me, you know, excited about it. Like, I'm way past the point of like, oh, look, lightsabers, you know, which is like what all that Disney seems to know how to do is look, there's a bunch of lightsabers on the screen. Aren't you excited? No, I'm not, because I know the story's going to suck. So yeah, I'm not thinking it's going to be good at all, but maybe my expectations are so rock bottom that they can actually pull off something that I won't hate.
During a recent interview with Total Film Magazine, Leslye Headland, the showrunner of The Acolyte, offered intriguing details about the series. Headland confirmed a departure from George Lucas's original concept surrounding the Force, a significant divergence from traditional Star Wars lore. This bold move has the potential to reshape the franchise in profound and unexpected ways, setting the stage for an entirely new era of storytelling within the Star Wars universe. And obviously, those are the words of a shill that is trying to play this up as if actually diverging from what George Lucas created with Star Wars and actually diverging from Star Wars lore is somehow a good thing.
I mean, that's what they did with The Last Jedi, and we saw how that worked out. It divided the fandom and it buried the franchise. So I expect that this will bury the franchise more. I don't think that a radical departure from the creator's vision, led by Harvey Weinstein's former assistant, who willfully fed him, victims, and booked the rooms that he could victimize them in. I don't really think that I'm interested in what her bold new view of Star Wars is, but we're going to get it. So thank you very much for that, Kathleen Kennedy.
What is it about Disney and Kathleen Kennedy, who certainly worked with George Lucas over the years? She should have an amount of reverence for George Lucas. Without George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, there is no Kathleen Kennedy. It almost feels like they don't like George Lucas at this point, and it's their intention to basically destroy what he built over decades upon decades.
I think it's just the desire to sacrifice all of these things on the altar of postmodernism and fill them with Marxist ideology. That's what the goal is. So it may not even be a hatred of George Lucas, but it is a definite hatred of the hero's journey, of characters that are, stand-up moral characters that stand for good over evil. The lines have become so blurred, and they, none of these people that are working on these things, they don't understand actual morality anymore. They don't understand, the values that are inherent within the audience, the majority of the audience. So they just continue to subvert and continue to tear down and continue to destroy.
So I could completely understand somebody like Bob Iger going out there and acquiring Lucasfilm and saying, hey, we can't stick to what George Lucas was doing because then it isn't my idea. I'm not the reason that Star Wars is successful. I want you to diverge away from that. I'm just so surprised that Kathleen Kennedy and even Dave Filoni are going along with this and really leading the charge into destroying what has been the most successful, widely praised and loved entertainment brand in the history of entertainment. Like, that's the part I can't get my head around.
Well, when you look at Dave Filoni, do you see a man? Do you see someone with a spine? Do you see someone with, who would stick to his guns? I don't see that at all. I see, just another weak man who will be led around and who will be, bossed around, and will, do whatever it is he needs to do to keep his job. I don't think that there's any strong convictions within Dave Filoni. I think that, I don't even think that there's a strong love of Star Wars necessarily. I think this is just the job that he has. And he loves the idea that he also gets to turn it into something else. He gets to make it his, waifu, Ahsoka, wankery fanfic. That's what he gets to turn the whole universe into. Ahsoka's the most important character that ever existed in Star Wars because that's Dave Filoni's waifu.
I'm certainly not surprised that Headland's doing this. She's not got any love or reverence for a person like a George Lucas, but Headland expressed her intention for the Acolyte to redefine the concept of balance in the Force, indicating a departure from traditional interpretation. She explained, honestly, the way I look at it is there is no light without darkness, no good without bad. So to me, and this might just be a personal thing, the Force is about balance. It's not just a Marvel superpower. The Force sensitive aren't using telekinesis because they're special, powerful people. It's because they've achieved balance. As Yoda says, my ally is the Force. So the idea of a separation from that was really interesting. If you're unbalanced, the Force cannot protect you. I guess in order to be a light Force user, you also have to have a lot of dark Force in you as well, is the way that I'm interpreting that, which is against everything that Star Wars has ever stood for.
Yeah, it really is. And listen, I'm not against having different characters that have that perspective, that have different perspectives on the Force. That's why you have the Grey Jedi in the expanded universe. That's why you have characters like Qui-Gon Jinn who disagree with the Council. You have this army of warrior monks and philosophers. They're going to have different takes on it. But it seems that what Leslye Headland wants to do is completely redefine what the Force is according to her own worldview and make that the official canon and decanonize everything that George Lucas, the guy that created it, thought about it. And I think that is always the wrong move. I think going against what the creator intended is always the wrong move. It's what alienates the fan base from the property. But Disney seems hell-bent on recreating Star Wars in their own corrupt image, and it's just getting diminishing returns, and it'll continue to get diminishing returns. They've turned the brand of brands, a license to print money, the golden goose, they have turned it into a shitty series of TV shows on a failing streaming service, as to paraphrase Gary from Nerdrotic.
Yeah, it's insane because when George Lucas has talked about this, the way that you put the Force out of balance is the dark side itself. That's what creates imbalance within the Force itself. Dark Force users or the Sith, people using the dark side of the Force to their own personal gain, because that's where greed comes from, narcissism, all those things that are completely incongruent to what the Jedi stand for on the light side of the Force. And there always have been people that can use the Force that aren't exactly a Sith or a Jedi. Like you mentioned, the Dark Jedi, there's witches and stuff out there. But it's always been stated that the light side of the Force is the good side. This is a battle of good and evil. And conflating the two because, I don't know, you work for Harvey Weinstein and maybe you want to see things in a more gray tone than black and white and have to actually own up for the evil things that you did, I do think does the entire Star Wars universe and lore an enormous disservice.
It absolutely does. Well, you said it. It's, the dark side is about greed and narcissism, and that's what these people are about. They're not about greed for money because they're certainly not making any money with Star Wars. They're losing money hand over fist. But it's the greed for, there's the line in that first trailer that says, it's not about, the light, it's not about the dark. It's about power and who's going to have the right to wield it. And that's what this is really about. It's about power over this franchise. It's about power over the cultural touchstone that this franchise is. It's taking key nodes and infrastructure and robbing people of things that they enjoyed to just turn everything into this homogenized delivery system for the message. That's what Star Wars has become, and it's bred from their narcissism. So I hate to tell you guys this, but the Sith won. The Empire, the whole Star Wars franchise has fallen to the dark side. It's under the control of the Sith, and it will be for the foreseeable future because Disney is now an evil empire, and it will continue to be so until maybe the day that they finally force Bob Iger out of there.
And Bob Iger himself has kind of admitted, hey, we made some mistakes. We went down the wrong path. We alienated our audience. We need to get back to good storytelling, really concentrating on our franchises and beefing them up. And every time he says that, a project like The Acolyte makes it into Disney Plus, or a movie like The Last Jedi makes it into theaters, and you're going, you're talking out of one side and the other of your mouth. You're not saying anything that lines up with what you're actually doing, because action do speak louder than words. And I don't think, I just don't see Star Wars being salvageable anymore. And that's the worst thing about it, because I am a lifelong Star Wars fan. That's literally like my first love of entertainment, was playing with the Star Wars figures and going to the movies and even enjoying like the Ewok specials and seeing the Droids cartoon and Ewoks and all that stuff and the play sets. And, Star Wars didn't have a movie for like a decade or whatever, and it never died because the fandom loved it so much. And it turns out that corporate greed, siding with the Sith is the way to destroy Star Wars.
Yeah. And, the thing with Bob Iger is he does talk out of both sides of his mouth because he is just a corporate suit. He doesn't have a creative bone in his body. He wouldn't know a good story if it fell ass first out of the sky and landed on his face and started to wiggle. He would not be able to recognize it. So every time he goes into these meetings and he says the same tired stuff, we need to cut back on quantity and we need to focus on quality. You don't know what quality is, Bob. You can't recognize it. So it's just lip service to keep your job and to keep your shitty board in place so that you can continue to stroke your ego and stay in power at Disney. Well, congratulations. You are the guy in the movie riding the bomb down to his doom.
Slim
you could have
Pickens?
left. Yeah, Slim Pickens. You could have left. You could have had that, that legacy of people thinking that, oh yeah, Bob Iger, he really did some good things with Disney, with all the smoke and mirrors and all the acquisitions, because that's all you've done. That's all you know how to do is acquire. Well, now the money's gone. You can't acquire anything anymore. And you're stuck with all these things that you bought that you broke and you don't know how to fix.
Well, Aaron, don't forget about all the firings of anybody with talent that actually had a love for Disney and the brands that they had, because he certainly did a mass exodus and expulsion of anybody that could have challenged his power by actually delivering what Disney fans even wanted. Most recently, Disney's new Star Wars series, Tales of the Empire, uses they/them pronouns to refer to a gender-ambiguous character that appears in the Disney Plus animated show's 5th episode. In the scene in question, the character Barriss Offee engages in a lightsaber duel with an unnamed Jedi whose gender appears to be ambiguous. The scene makes no mention of gender identity or pronouns during the fight, but once the unnamed Jedi is slain by a third warrior, the remaining two characters begin referring to the dead Jedi using they and them. Tales of the Empire is created by Dave Filoni, whom Disney named Chief Creative Officer of Lucasfilm last year. Another example, actions speaking much louder than words. Now we're going into the big agenda and shoving it into Star Wars cartoons some more.
Mm-hmm. And what's even worse? What's even worse is how bland and boring everyone is telling me that this show was. It's created no buzz. It's like The Bad Batch. The Bad Batch, they just had their last season. Did you even know that? Because nobody cares. Nobody's talking about Star Wars anymore. It's dead. You don't even have you don't even have enough passion left in the fandom for them to be angry about these things that you're doing. They've just walked away. And so that's what all these franchises are doing with all of their messaging and all of their, all of the nonsense they're putting in there and the ways that they're changing the properties and the way that they're subverting them. People are just walking away. They don't care anymore. And that's the worst place to be, because an angry fan is still passionate about the property. A fan that is just indifferent, you can't get them back.
And what are the odds, do you think, of them is going to be in the Acolyte as well? Almost guaranteed.
There's going to be tons of that. Yes, Queen, yes. You saw that terrible terrible presentation they did at Star Wars Celebration. It's going to be awful. It's going to be so filled with identity politics, you're not going to know what to do.
And Leslye Headland herself had said she really wanted to imbue her own queerness into Star Wars, which is something they already actually did in comic books when they brought in Alyssa Wong to write the Dr. Aphra character and destroyed what was one of the new things that Disney had created in Star Wars that was actually successful. People like Dr. Aphra. Guess what? Nobody even knows who the character is anymore after Alyssa Wong's time with her.
Yeah, they released a new figure of Dr. Aphra, and it's currently on clearance everywhere. Nobody knows it. Nobody cares. The people that do know it walked away. Keep ruining your franchises, Disney. Keep doing it. I'm loving it. I'm loving watching it happen. I'm like way past the point of being upset, and now I just want to see you fail again and again. Release that Rey movie. Oh, I dare you. Put out a Grogu and Mandalorian movie. stuff old Mark Hamill in there with a reskinned face and try and recapture that Mandalorian season 2 glory. Do it. Just keep doing it. Spend so much money on all of these things. I just want you to lose hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars again and again and again until the company has to either be, completely altered from the ground up with new leadership, or it has to be broken up and sold off like scrap. Whichever one happens, I'm here for it because you've earned it. You've earned it by spitting in the face of your customers and the fans who kept you guys in business, by telling them that you're not the audience we want. We want this other mystical audience of where, 100% of the population is all gay and trans and on board with all this stuff. That audience that doesn't exist. That's what we want. We don't want you. Good job. You earned this. Enjoy every single minute of it.
Damn, Aaron, you had a little fire in your belly there at the end.
I was like, we're right at the end. We got to finish strong. But no, it's like I'm glad. I'm glad that they're failing. I'm glad that all these things are falling apart. They deserve it. The franchises that they're destroying don't deserve it. The fandom doesn't deserve it. But now they deserve the full and just recompense of their actions. And from the ashes of their ruined franchises, people like me, people that I know that are passionate about film, passionate about movies, passionate about comic books, passionate about entertainment, those people will build a better world on top of those ashes. So let it all burn.
Now, this is just the first part of the Geek Fix podcast on Thinking Critical Patreon that Aaron and I do every single Wednesday. We've got another 2 hours in us talking about all the news in pop culture, lots of video games this week, as well as comic books. And we are going to talk a lot about comic book toys and action figures and all that stuff. If you're interested in supporting the channel on Patreon, you get lots of podcasts in the return. There's a link to the Patreon in the video description.